Hi, everyone. This is Dan, audio engineer of the Art of Costume Blogcast. We wanted to take a moment to thank you for listening and all of the support, reviews, and messages you've given us so far. I'd like to also let you know, if you're interested in supporting the show, you can now head over to patreon.com/theartofcostume. Your support there would be greatly appreciated and would help us continue to run the podcast, create quality content for you, and bring light to the world of costume design. For our patrons, we'll be posting highlights, funny moments, and even unheard bloopers. We'll also be posting additional episodes just for Patreon. So once again, make sure to check out patreon.com/theartofcostume for full details. You can also support us by heading to theartofcostume.com/podstore. There you can buy an awesome Blogcast shirt, print, coffee mug, and a whole host of other possibilities from TeePublic. Thank you for all you do, and enjoy the show.
We started drawing, and they had like little short shorts on the character, no. And like, you know,
you can't put Timothy Spall in short shorts.
Exactly. So once we were cast, I had to be like, okay, you guys, it works a little different.
Yeah.
Listen up, nerds.
Listen up, nerds.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Costume Blogcast. I'm Elizabeth Joy Glass.
And I'm Spencer Williams. Elizabeth, happy Fairy Tale Romance Month.
Happy Fairy Tale Romance Month. Oh, this is so exciting. I love all the movies we've seen so far. It's brought up my spirits so much.
We all need like a little bit of love these days, and like fantasy and dragons and true love's kiss and all that good stuff.
Pie. All of that good stuff.
Right. Cinderella dresses, glass slippers.
I love all these movies we're watching, and I think this week was a particular favorite of mine.
What are we watching this week, Elizabeth?
Everyone, this week we watched Enchanted.
Oh my gosh.
Classic.
Such a good movie. I was 12 years old when this movie came out. I mean, I've loved this movie for a majority of my life.
Same.
I don't remember a day without Enchanted.
Amy Adams, Patrick Dempsey, Susan Sarandon. It's got like all the big names. It's fun. It's whimsical.
It has a dragon.
It has a dragon for you, yes. And I feel like we should just jump into this with a summary, Spencer.
All right. So Enchanted. In the fairy tale land of Andalasia, Giselle frolics with her woodland pals and falls in love with the handsome Prince Edward. But when Giselle arrives at the castle to marry her Prince Charming, his evil stepmother sends the princess-to-be to a place where there are no happy ever afters, New York City. Such a great premise to the film.
So good. If you haven't seen this, turn us off. Put on Disney Plus. Go watch it.
Immediately.
You'll be happy you did. Once you're back, we're just going to jump right into Behind the Wardrobe, because this amazing, fabulous wardrobe was brought to us by director Kevin Lima and costume designer Mona May, who you'll know from Clueless, The Wedding Singer, A Night at the Roxbury, The Haunted Mansion, The House Bunny, 1,000,002 incredible shows and movies. And best of all, Spencer, we have her with us today. Welcome, Mona.
Mona, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here, especially for a fairy tale romance month. I love that.
Right. We all need a little fantasy right now, Mona.
We do, darling. We do. It's harsh out there, so I'm glad we can get maybe more fans for our Enchanted. People who haven't seen it, we can get them in, loop them in.
Yes.
Right. I don't trust anybody who hasn't seen Enchanted yet. It's just the greatest fairy tale ever.
You know what? Some of those hardcore, non-romance fans, maybe now it's time to feel good, get to Disney Plus and have some fun.
Right. So we're going to take a quick break. And after this break, we're going to get into our interview. I'm so excited.
Me too.
Okay, we're back. Are you guys ready? Let's do this. Mona, I love talking to you. It's been a while since we last talked about Clueless, but today it's all about you and Enchanted. But first, for the podcast listeners, I always love listening to your story. Do you mind just kind of giving our audience a little bit of background on how you got into this field?
I love talking about it because I think it's an unusual way that I got into this field. I always wanted to be a fashion designer. So that's kind of was my first love. As a kid, as a little girl, I was dressing mom and friends and, creating collections for my little princess and doll dresses. So it was just part of me. It was my dream. And, I studied fashion. I'm from Europe. So I studied in Europe. I went to New York. And ended up in LA at the Fashion Institute here in Los Angeles. And when I was in school, I had a bunch of friends in UCLA Film School and USC, and, we were hanging out and they're like, hey, you in fashion, can you help us? We're doing some little thesis films and, read the script and, maybe you can bring some clothes. And I was like, sure, sounds like a fun weekend. And this was really my introduction to costume design. And I have to tell you, I caught the bug immediately. I loved reading the script. I loved being able to tell the story through the clothes, to dive into the kind of psychology of the humans. And, it was so much more than just fashion, that, creating great clothes. And I also loved the collaborative kind of process of filmmaking, being with the director, seeing their vision, bringing my own vision, research, being able to go into different time periods, or fantasy. And, I was also a good manager, I was on time, which is all the kind of part that you have to deliver.
Right.
You can't just be a fabulous, artist, but you have to deliver in film. You have to be on time, you have to make sure everything fits and things don't rip on set, and it kind of happened. And it really was, very quickly, it was MTV times, which ages me a little bit. MTV was starting out, and, I just started doing videos and music videos, and there was a funny show on MTV called Just Say Julie, which was like a skit comedy. Mm-hmm. A really fun show, It was
a good show.
It was fun, So it was just really like opened a whole other world for me that I really didn't know it existed. Hollywood. Well, I watched movies, but that was it. And I was able really to marry, my love for fashion and costume design in my career, being so lucky to have a big break in film Clueless, which was about fashion, so that was super fun. And I think when I met Amy Heckerling, the director, we did a pilot together that didn't unfortunately get picked up, but we got to meet and form this super creative relationship. And when she wrote Clueless, she called me up and she said, you know what, you're really the perfect person because you love fashion. You're from Europe, kind of the trends, where to look for the trends on the runway shows and how now we can marry that and, create this rich Beverly Hills girls world. And that film really put me on a map. We didn't know it's going to be such a huge success. We were just doing a fun, cool film that,
right.
We loved the script. But it's just, blew up. And here we are 25 years later, and it's still, one of the most beloved fashion films and, countless lines of clothes made after it. And, yellow plaid even in 2022 all over the runways. So I think the rest is history. It's been really fun to be kind of the queen of the 90s, do all the big comedies, Wedding Singer, Never Been Kissed, Romy and Michelle, to really have that kind of great success where the doors opened and I was able to really kind of, play and have fun. And I think, Enchanted was really cool for me because it was kind of like after doing Stuart Little, which was a CGI live action film, I was able to kind of jump into that different world for me, which was more of CGI fantasy, and kind of marry my new love, which was really more of the technical stuff, kind of the CGI work. And I really, really enjoyed it. So Enchanted really was super fun. It was, such an interesting film to do, 2D animation, live action, and then, CGI costumes. And that all had to live, one costume that lives in all the 3 different mediums.
Yeah, jumping into that part of it, what was the collaboration process like between, the classic animators, the CGI, your work with the live action? Like that, the combination of those 3 is part of what makes this such a fun movie. Can you talk a little bit about the collaboration process with that?
Well, communication is always the most important thing. And I talk a lot about, when I talk to students, about communicating your ideas and, communicating your ideas not only to the director, actors, but, in between the different departments. So here we had to have a very, very close communication because it was the same costume. Like Prince Edward, Narissa, they never changed.
Right.
So it was really one costume that had to travel through these different mediums. And what was really interesting, in 2D animation, everything is hand drawn. And it was so awesome to meet these guys, who were like, the Disney guys, sitting at the desk, these kind of very special desks that move around. And, really to see this was incredible. And, the research I got to go to the vaults of Disney and,
wow.
To go in a special temperature with the gloves and, look through the artwork of the 20s and 30s and 40s and see what hasn't been done and kind of what kind of a fresh look can we create in the animation. So it's modern, but very much of Disney, too. I mean, you're kind of reinventing these characters in a sense, but they have to, they live in our psyche. When you think of a princess, you know what it is. It's a big dress with a tiny waist, with the big puffy sleeves. When you think of Queen Narissa, it's like, how do you reinvent these characters to give them freshness, but stay, in a Disney world and something that we really see in our heads. You can't go too far. So that was really interesting. And what was also interesting is that you are working with animators, drawing these characters that now, first time probably for them, they have to be living as in live action. So the costumes that we're drawing have to be put on human bodies. Because, in animation, there's no gravity, right?
Yeah.
You can do anything. I mean, you can have the short shorts, you can have whatever. Everything just kind of stays and flows and plays and nothing falls off, unless it needs to.
Right.
You can completely control it, which on the human body, when actors walking through New York or Central Park dancing, you have to make sure that the shit stays on.
Yeah.
So it was interesting kind of working with them because I had to bring the reality into the room. Like, okay, you guys, the great example is the sidekick of Edward, played by Timothy Spall. Because we started drawing his costume before they hired the actor. And, I'm very involved in the design part, which was very cool. I was brought on very, very early, to prepare the movie. I had about 7 months, to prepare because I was working with the animators, on all the designs. And, we started drawing and they kind of drew, we started drawing and they had like little short shorts on the character. No. And like,
You can't put Timothy Spall in short shorts.
Exactly. So, it took, once we were cast, I had to be like, okay, you guys, it works a little different.
Yeah.
Listen up, nerds.
Listen up, nerds, But it was fun. It was really cool to do that because also what was very interesting for me as a costume designer, the other side of that was that, when you're working with animation, and I kind of mentioned that when you think of the animated princess, it is this certain kind of proportion, right? It's a doll-like proportion. So you have this body that has a tiny, tiny waist, the big sleeves, the big hoop skirt, and now you have a human body. So what do you, how do you reconcile that? So my job was also the other side of that. So drawing it with the animators, figuring out what we're going to do, but then taking that and having to make that happen in live action. So the proportion in these costumes was one of the most tricky things. How do you take, for example, the dress, wedding dress of Giselle and put it in New York City and make her look like the animated character. So the sleeves were huge. The hoop skirt was, bigger than King and I in the movie King and I, to really create that little doll-like proportion on a human body. It was very, very interesting. And then look at the prints too. You have these big sleeves. I mean, it was so interesting doing the fittings, and I think the first fitting we had, and the sleeves were so big that we couldn't even see the actor's head.
Oh my goodness.
You know what I mean? Because you don't know. You're like making this thing and then not really till you put it on. And then, okay, how do you take this character and not make him stupid looking, right? Because I mean, it's like you're taking this weird cartoon with the big sleeves, with this puffy chest, with kind of, it's off, right? I mean, it looks great in a cartoon, but how do you take that now and create the costume so when you see him in New York City, let's say, I think the opening shot with him is on the bus, that he looks glorious, that he looks handsome, that, you understand why she's still in love with him and maybe not Patrick Dempsey.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If he came to New York and looked like a kind of silly goofball, you'd be like, oh, ditch him, right?
Right.
You'd be like, forget it. So he had to look handsome. So it was a really tricky costume, actually, that costume for him to make the proportion right, to make the sleeves like they look and act in animation in real life, with the stitching, with the piping, with the, embroidery on it. I mean, it almost was like a mathematical equation that we had to do. We padded his chest, we padded his butt, it was all like engineering to make that look. And James Marsden, what an incredible actor. He was so patient, you guys. He was like, listen, we were prepping at Western. And he's like, I live nearby. Just call me anytime. I just want to make this work. I want to make this character incredible. So, I mean, I think we had about 10 fittings.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
To really, really precisely, and he had a cape. The cape had to work. He's moving a lot. The cape couldn't pull the costumes backwards. I mean, truly engineering feast, how to make that costume move in the perfect way and feel super handsome on him, so it was fun. It was really, really, really interesting. So I think that was kind of the tricky part of the animation, sitting with the guys, getting it right first on the paper with them, and then being able to translate it. So it was, super, super cohesive. And then you jump from there to, let's say, the guy who's designing the dragon, for Narissa. So you have Narissa, Queen Narissa animation, live action. Now Susan Sarandon is walking on the 42nd Street in the costume, and then she's turning into a CGI dragon. So now how do the elements, the colors, the textures of her costumes, the horns of her crown turn into the horns of the dragon, the chiffon that's, kind of her wings that when she wears it turns into the wings of the dragon. All of that had to be worked out, and you have to have the consistency of color, of textures, of, proportion, all of that again seamlessly going through the medium. So it was very, very challenging, and it's very time consuming, the details, to going back and forth, making sure, they have the Pantone color of the right tone of the purple, or, really understanding like how her costume was made to look like, multicolored oil slick. How does he translate that now onto the skin and color of the dragon? But I love this kind of stuff. I think that, from doing Stuart Little, it was this challenge and kind of, it's a learning curve, because the technology also is going, each year is different. And, I don't know certain terminology. So as a costume designer, you have to, learn the lingo in a way of, the 2D animators and also the CGI guys. So it's interesting, it's very fun to do that. And I think that, you have that stuff in Marvel films too. It's just maybe a little bit less pronounced, because it's like there's so much CGI world behind them, and then CGI costumes. Here you really, everything CGI lived in live action. So we had to make that as real as possible, and I think that's also the charm of the film. I think it's like old Star Wars, I was talking to a friend about it. It's kind of like, we want some of that real mixed with the unreal. And that's what's cool.
I think that's what makes this film so brilliant, and we often hear this from people, but people, costume designers are so important to films such as Enchanted. And like you mentioned, like Marvel films and Star Wars films, even if there is a lot of CGI or animation like this, we need costume designers who know how clothes work on a body and how to develop characters, So I think such an important moment. And I'm so excited that we're talking about this film because this is really the pinnacle of the crossover between costume design and animation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think kind of was one of the beginnings too. I don't think we've seen a lot of that before. I mean, I think we've seen some stuff on Shrek and different things, but not so much. I think the 2D animation was very different. What was very interesting, maybe when we start talking about Giselle and her costumes, what was so fun when you really look at the beginning of the film and you see the dress, drawn, the wedding dress is drawn into the animation. It's really more like a cutout, right? It's very flat. There's very little details. I mean, you see the outline of the sleeves, you see the gloves, but you don't see really the details of all the sparkle or the jewelry, all the, it's maybe, I think you have one flower at the waist. That's about it. And what was so cool when we were developing, because, we had to develop the Andalusia world and then the New York world. So the Andalusia was kind of like Art Nouveau. Everything was round. Everything was pretty. Everything was very kind of feminine. And then you got to New York and it was very linear, very cold, kind of, the tall buildings, not a lot of light. So when the characters came to New York from the Andalusia world, you saw the difference. You saw that was kind of the juxtaposition of the two worlds. And specifically, I think in Giselle wedding dress and I think Prince Edward, when you have all this, you can really see the Art Nouveau in his costume, the kind of the round lines of the design of, even the sleeves, the embroidery, everything on his costume. And same for her. So when she comes out, she swirls through the world, wherever she is, and comes out the manhole, which was a real manhole, you guys, in New York City. Amy Adams was stuffed into a stinky manhole
with that dress
in Times Square.
Oh my gosh!
With a mini dress. So we had a mini short version that she could climb in, and then once she pops out, she changes into the long dress. So we had many versions. I think about 14 versions of this dress.
Oh, wow.
This wedding dress. But when you see her in the film, especially when she's still inside the hall and she's like, what the hell is happening? And then she pops out. Now the dress is like 3D crazy. So now you have, flowers, you have butterflies, you have glitter, everything, again, Art Nouveau design. You have the ruffles, you have the crown, you have, just so much detail. We want it to almost be like, we just, and that's the kind of, again, you see the juxtaposition, 2D flat. Okay, now we are in live world, in human form, just exploding with details. And that was really fun, so now you have the details, the explosion of the details and textures and glitter, as well as the doll-like human proportion on her, so the effect is incredible. I think, when you really see her, the first scenes walking through the streets and just like, what the hell?
Yeah, it really is incredible. And it's incredible how much she can move in that dress. Cause it's like, you look at it and like, I feel like I wouldn't be able to like take 2 steps in it, but she moves through those streets.
Well, I have to give Amy Adams is incredible. Kudos to Amy Adams because the dress did weigh a lot.
Right. They had to.
This skirt had metal hoops. It was at least 150 yards of that tulle to make the ruffles,
Oh my gosh.
And, but again, engineering as a costume designer, we got to be smart. We got to make the actors comfortable this best we can. So the dress was designed in 2 parts, the bodice and the ruffle and the sleeves, and the kind of the overlay was one. And the skirt with the metal hoop and all the ruffle was second, like a separate piece. So we could take off, she could step out of the skirt and still be in a dress and take a break. And also the skirt that way was able to sit on her waist really well, kind of like rest there and pivot and move. So I love that kind of swinging, when she's running, she can pick it up. She can, it swings with her. And I think that was a lot of charm. The dress itself, it's a character in a film.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, I love watching her like run across the streets in that dress. It's just so magical, and it's like picking dirt up off the street, and it's just, oh man, that's like peak costume design right there.
Really fun. And then the whole thing of coming through the doorway, getting stuck. And I mean, as I said, I think we had 14 different dresses because we had the wet one. So we had like a permanently fake wet dress for her. We had the clean one. We had the singing dress when she's cleaning, and the skirt becomes the apron. So yeah, it was, pretty magical, I think. And again, having an actress who is so willing also, to work with the costume designer and really understand the physicality of something and plays with it, in the fittings and it's really important because you don't want to be on set and have somebody crying or, just go, okay, I'm done. I can't shoot anymore because I'm tired. It hurts and blah, blah, blah. So you really, as a costume designer, have to think of all of that as you making the costumes. When you have the fittings, you have to ask the right questions. Okay, hey, run around the hallway. Can we do it? Is it making a mark on your waist? Like all of that kind of stuff. Can we put a little bit of a padding there? And we did for her. So, this is kind of the behind the scenes, but I think it makes it for a better shoot. The
Absolutely.
director, for the actors to show up, they know that we took care of them. I really pride myself on that, taking that very, very seriously, like how to make, I work a lot with comedy. I mean, like if you think of Night of the Roxbury, where the guy had to move, they constantly dance in their suits, like I had to make the suits out of a very different type of material. It had to have stretch and be shiny.
Yeah.
And I found something like that in Japan, so they could actually move. You put little gaskets. So,
right.
a lot of my films, I mean, even like Never Been Kissed, when they throwing eggs at her, and she's Josie Grossi, I made the dress out of like, fake material where we could actually wipe the eggs off, and we didn't have to make 5 dresses, so it's like, okay, how can you make this so it's easier for production, better for the actor, and still looks great, so you're not compromising your look. But I love the wedding dress. I'm so proud of that. I feel like, it really is such a magical costume, and I love the proportion. I love how magical she looks in it when she comes from this other world, that it really is such a princess that we all dream of as our little girls or boys. And it was a beginning of her journey too, and it was a kind of an arc that she had to go through in the film where, she comes this kind of almost a fake person, right? She sings, she doesn't really know feelings, and she's just kind of in this world like, what the hell is happening, So this reflects that, kind of this big hair and the big eyelashes and all the tiara and, the glitter butterflies and stuff. And as we go through the film, she starts to change. She learns about feelings and who she is. She's kind of growing up, becoming more human. I mean, the second dress, when she makes out of the curtains, I love that dress. It's,
oh, that's a great one.
It was so much fun. And again, like talking about communication with the production designer in this case, what is the fabric for the curtain that's going to work for the dress, that can be feminine enough to make the dress, but looks like in the maybe a man's apartment, because we don't really find out much about what happened to his wife or something, So we had a lot of discussion what color of the curtains it's going to be. And then I wanted to have the embroidery incorporated. And, we ended up having a slight different colors on the curtain itself and on the dress. The curtain actually was a little bit more yellow, and I made the dress a little bit more aqua, blue-green, just to go better with her skin tone. But it was a very simple dress. I think it was, again, very kind of quintessential princess dress, empire waist. It resembled a little bit the dress that she wore in an opening act as an animated character a little bit. So we kind of brought that in. And it was a beautiful dress to move too. And that was also the design to go into the whole, Central Park scene for her.
Right, which that's a massive scene. I
Oh
I
my
hadn't
gosh.
seen this movie in a couple years, but I forgot how crazy this Central Park scene. It screams Moname too. Like it's so joyous and happy and positive. It's just like this is such a typical Moname colorful moment that I love so much.
Oh, thank you. It was crazy. I mean, it was like 4 a.m. calls, 400 extras.
Oh, wow.
Each of the groups have to be pre-fitted because it was so specific too. I mean, we had the wedding group.
Mm-hmm.
We had the guys in the blue jumpsuits. Oh my God. It was intense. But again, and on top of it, you guys, it was a heat wave in Central Park when we were shooting it.
Oh
no.
Those are the worst too. A New York heat wave, that is the worst.
The worst. So imagine this, when we were shooting the scene with the wedding dresses and, the guys in the wedding outfit look, and they had to pick up the girls. It was like a dance sequence where I think at one point they pick them up and they twirl them around.
They're like sponges.
You guys, after like 10 takes, the sweat of the guys on the waist of the wives' dresses turning yellow.
Oh
no.
My God.
I mean, we were not prepared to have doubles for extras, you know? I mean, it's like, we don't have it. So one of my genius assistants, and that's why your crew is everything, had a brilliant idea. I brought some white chalk. So we basically, or it was powder. I don't remember what it was, but it was like white chalk or white powder that we put on there, and we could kind of hide the wetness and this yellow stain. So, it's never a dull moment on a movie, always trying to solve problems. And I love having smart people work for me, because it's like, okay, I can't think of everything. And you have a great solution. Yes, please. But I loved that scene. It added so much kind of joy. It was such a beautiful expression also of Giselle, who she is. And I think the dress needed to be bright, needed to move beautifully, to be feminine, still very much in that moment, she was a princess in our world. So the cap sleeve, the little flowers in her hair, it was still very much of the Giselle who came from this other world, who sings and she doesn't speak yet. She's still kind of in her own world.
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh my gosh, I have that song still stuck in my head too. I've been singing it to Lisbeth all week.
Yeah, talking about her next look, the white pink floral little dress. I love this because it's still so Giselle, but it looks like something she could have walked into a store in New York and bought.
Yes, exactly. So now we're starting to see the change. It's still very much feminine. It has the flower ruffle, the flower pattern, very chiffon, still kind of moves this way. But now we made it a little shorter. It's kind of like when Dior 1950s made the dress short. Yeah. Kind of that was my feel. Okay, now she's going for it. She's kind of, it's a revolutionary for her. And exactly what you said, I think was kind of the feeling that she could go and buy the dress somewhere, but it's still very much of feminine, soft, changing, and now you see a little less of the poofiness of the hair, makeup maybe being a little less, the eyelashes are less, less perfect skin. So we're kind of moving her into becoming more of a real human being. And slowly, very slowly, but Amy loved the dress. We made the dress. I designed the dress, and we just had so much fun with it, Oh, yeah, it was like a perfect cocktail dress for, we shot in spring in New York too, which was kind of like, everything was blooming. It was just so beautiful.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Talking about another beautiful scene is the ballroom scene. And I find it so interesting because it's like there's people from like all different time periods. So like, oh, this is what I would wear to a ball. And then she is just like beautiful and modern among all these like very elaborate costumes.
Yes.
Very like Versace, like
kind of, right? Well, again, working with Amy was amazing. She has such great style and kind of sophistication. She really understood where we needed to kind of go in that moment, and we had a lot of discussion with her. And it was a moment where she basically strips everything, Giselle is now as human as she can be. She's like raw almost. So she lost everything. She lost the crazy hair. There's no more fake eyelashes. There's no more poofy sleeves. There's no more ruffle. It is just her. You see the shape of her body completely. Nothing is hidden. We kind of gave her a beautiful cleavage. The color was really important too, because I didn't want to do a black. Red wasn't really appropriate. No more pink, no more color. So this kind of royal lavender and kind of more matte, not shiny at all. I also was working very closely with Chacha, who's a famous choreographer from Australia, who's done, all the Baz Luhrmann movies. And we watched a lot of old movies, like Singing in the Rain and stuff. And so the way that I designed the dress, and when you see the bottom part, it opens like a tulip, and there's about maybe 15 layers of chiffon. So when she dances, it opens up. I mean, it really is like the moment in the old movies, when it just flows in the air. And I was so proud of the dress. I really felt that this was kind of the bookmark to the dress that we meet Giselle in. When you really put next to each other the wedding dress, and you put this dress next to it, that this person gone through a huge change.
Oh, such a magical scene. It gives me so much life. And Idina Menzel, too. She looks absolutely brilliant in this scene.
She does.
I loved making her dress, you guys. It was so much fun. I don't get to do a lot of period stuff. I mean, it was just so much fun to kind of dive into that. And because we were in the ballroom scene, when there were people from, all different time periods, I really could pick anything, And what was fun for her in this scene was that, she was kind of harsh and strong and kind of like a, New York girl who was, self-made. And, so her clothes were very, if you look in the film, very linear, very gray. Not super feminine, even though the fabric was soft, she wasn't like boxy. But there was not a lot of femininity coming through it. And this was kind of this costume to show her femininity. It was pink and green and had a lot of little rosettes and stuff. So it was fun. It was kind of the opposite for her, going the other way, because, then she ends up with Edward, which is so fun. But yeah, so it was a nice thing to do, and of course, Patrick Dempsey in his gorgeous,
beautiful,
kind of, dashing, princely outfit, which was great, and also that outfit was really important because he ends up, on the roof in it, and we have to have many of that outfit, and what is it, and, how comfortable it is. I mean, imagine also the dress that Giselle wears. She ends up on the roof, fighting the dragon. So, again, you have to be an engineer. So you have to make the dress that looks like it's poured onto her body, but then it has to work on the roof, being wet, fighting.
She has to fight a dragon in it.
Fight a dragon, So I didn't make my life easy on that one here.
No. Well, to turn away from Giselle for a little bit, we talk about Timothy Spall on this podcast all the time, it seems like. He just shows up in every film we watch as the mischievous Timothy Spall character. I love his costume. I love his hat and the fabrics and the textiles, but also he has so many fun disguises too. I love the Central Park caramel apple. It's ridiculous. You have to talk to us about this.
He is amazing. He's one of those actors that comes from, England, who is just like, been in theater and really completely gets it. So we really got into a lot of discussions about his costume. He really wanted to be this cartoon character. Like when we started drawing him after, we moved on from the short shorts and kind of started to design the big balloon kind of shorts on him and, the big coat and the tiny hat. When I was translating that into real garment, it was really important that, again, the animated proportion was there, so the pants were huge. I put horsehair in the pants to keep them balloon. So, so they didn't kind of collapse. Yeah. Same with,
I love that.
Right. And same with the color. So if you see the color is so exaggerated on his coat, and then you have that little tiny hat. So it's, it's giving him that kind of humor that you saw in the animated character in live action, and I love the texture. I'm so glad you talk about it because I really love the coat texture and the scarf and then the burgundy hat and then the stripe. And even the shoes were important. We made them more clowny. We made them oversized. I don't know if you can really see it in the film, but it was really fun for him because he also felt weird when he was walking. Not they were like not meaning that they were uncomfortable, but
that's such a good point.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And he was such a game with everything. I just loved working with him. When we had the fittings and for the silly characters with changing the hair and makeup, for the waiter and the apple seller. I mean, he just was such a clown. I love when actors really kind of get into it, and it's not so much about the vanity, but like really making the character cool and funny.
Right.
Yeah.
Such a hilarious character. But speaking of texture, Mona, you know what I'm about to talk to you about.
Oh my God.
We have to talk about Queen Narissa. I just have to start by saying this is when I think of costume design, I think of Queen Narissa's dress is one of my all-time favorite costumes from any movie, period. Like booked, that's it. I love that one.
Oh, thank you, honey.
I love how from animation it's very like flat, like, solid colors. But then as she translates into this live action, the textures and the colors, it's just like, it's beautiful. You have to talk about it.
I love this costume so much too, because it was just really a wonderful journey. I got to work in New York with incredible artists, craftsmen who helped me build the costume. And it really, when you think of something in your head and you have these incredible, designs, ideas and textures and colors, but you have to have the people also to help you to visualize it and make it, and when you find these people, and I feel that these craftsmen don't get enough also play or we don't talk about those people, but it really is incredible. Look at the crown that we've designed and it was made of metal and then, dipped in silver, like all the different details, the silk that was handmade for her wings and burned out. And, the leather that I used was, had texture kind of like a little bit foreshadowing of the skin of the dragon later, but then I decided to treat it with, like silver leaf. We first applied silver leaf to it, and then we painted it with this French enamel that's like see-through. So when you see the colors, kind of the oil slick colors on the texture of the leather of her bodice, the silver kind of comes through when the camera sees it and the light hits it. So that's why it also became so magical. So it's one thing is the design, and it was so fun to also do this design very differently. When I think why I got this movie actually is because of her costume. When I went to the meeting, first meeting, interview for the film, there were so many huge designers. Everybody was fighting to get this job. And, I created like a really beautiful book as my presentation, of Andalusia and kind of my ideas of it. And when I went on the page for Queen Narissa, I brought something very modern to the character. And it kind of stunned the director. It wasn't a gown. It wasn't a cape, per se. Even the color behind her, I kind of made it a little bit different than what it really is. And that was what I talked about in the beginning of our conversation. Like, how do you reinvent something that's so iconic? How do you give it a little bit new of a twist, in a sense, freshness, but you don't go so far out of it that you don't recognize the character, that it's not Disney anymore. That's not the quintessential evil Queen Narissa. So that was a very fine line to walk on. But I kind of went on a whim in the interview and I said, I want to have her modern. I want to have her like, she's Queen Narissa of the queen of the underworld. She can go to the Paris fashion shows, right? She can go anywhere. So why not do something different? And it was so intriguing to the director that I got the second meeting and I got the film. Because I went on a whim, I kind of wanted to make something a little bit different. And I feel like I succeeded. I feel that I kind of kept her in the world of Disney, but I gave her a fresh spin.
Right.
And I was able to kind of create what we talked about as well, the 2D animation, live action, and CGI cohesiveness.
Yeah, it's one of the most beautiful costumes ever. I could look at it all day. And actually, I wanted to promote a little bit. I have seen it in person. It's beautiful. It's currently, this costume, as well as one of Giselle's wedding dresses, can be seen at the Heroes and Villains exhibit, the Art of Disney Costume at the Mopop in Seattle. At least tickets are available at least through February. So if you're listening and you might be in the Seattle area or going to Seattle, you gotta go see. And also there's pictures of all these, of a few of these costumes in the Art of Disney Costuming book, which is also available right now. We'll put a link in our show notes so you could all get it.
You guys should get the book. It's incredible. Enchanted is in there. Narissa costume is in there. Giselle wedding dress is in there. I have a second movie in there as well, which I'm so proud to have. 2 movies in the books. I have the Haunted Mansion costumes in there too.
Which is a brilliant movie, Elizabeth. We should probably do that episode too.
Yeah.
That would be super fun. But I'm just so happy about that you love her costume. I'm so proud of this costume. I just feel it's really, it's a masterpiece. It truly is, all the metal work that was put onto her, a bodice and the crown. And I think all the different textures. I mean, I really didn't spare a detail. And, it wasn't not the easy costume to work in. And, she had to walk in the shoes. And I mean, she was like, we were on the 42nd Street in New York,
right.
Walking through the crowds. And, later on, she's turning into the dragon. And again, I can't say enough of these incredible actors too, who are like, Susan would be in the fittings and like, we're just making a muslin of the dress, and we have to send pictures to the studio because it costs so much money. They want to see every step of the way, and she's standing there like the Queen Narissa already, and that's amazing. She's selling it. She knows she's such a pro, and having great directors too. And I think that we as costume designers, sometimes really we get lucky with like Amy Heckling, or Kevin Lima, who was the director in this on Enchanted. And they kind of give us room to play, and that is really that they trust you enough that you can come to them with different ideas, that you can kind of try different things out. Like on Haunted Mansion, I was able to do glow costumes. What the hell? Some director will be like, what? I don't want to hear about it, But then you have these directors who are, part of your kind of open to the creative process. And this was so cool in this film as well, that I was lucky to have Kevin Lima as the director and the actors, that we could develop these, that we could kind of, we had the time and money to go deeper into it. I think the problem nowadays too is there's just such a different process of, the streamers and faster and quicker. And, we don't have the money, just do it. And, you have 2 days, and it's hard to do these type of costumes anymore. You need the time to develop. You need the time, to work with the craftsmen and, okay, try this. Well, maybe this will work better. Even costume, Edward costume, we had to dye the costume to have this exact purple, kind of burgundy purple. That wasn't easy too. We had to find a silk type of, material that, velvet that we could work with, that was strong enough that, some of the silk wasn't right, was too shiny. Then we went into cotton, but the cotton was too heavy. His costume was starting to get too heavy. So, all of that kind of stuff, you need time to do a good job, to make it look good on screen, to make the actors feel comfortable, so it really, it's, I love the process, it's really to be a designer and kind of have the luxury is incredible, to really be able to design it that way.
Yeah, that's why we do this podcast. We love the process. I love, just hearing about all the things you went through and your thoughts behind all these textiles. And it's such a beautiful film. I could talk about it forever.
Thank you. And if if we're really looking at this costume, really when you think of, and I love that you included the 2D animated picture and then the dragon.
Right.
You can see it's the same. It's the same character, it's the same costume, it's the same texture. So the communication again between the 2D animators, me designing the costumes and the CGI artist was seamless, and that's also beautiful. It's really, it's beautiful. I think that's when films are at the best, when it all comes together that way.
I need Susan Sarandon to wear this to the Met Gala this year. I don't know how that needs to happen, but that needs to happen.
Seriously, enough of the horrible things people wear. I'm so disappointed. Just like seriously, I mean, no, it's funny. I mean, fashion is going through such different, change. I mean, it's like I think it's all over the place. Everybody's trying to kind of do something maybe more outrageous, but it's not.
Right. So, Mona, Elizabeth and I were talking about, the costumes of this film. They're so timeless. They hold up so well. And we were talking about, we're like, that's really how all of your costumes are. When we talk about Clueless, Romy and Michelle, Enchanted, I mean, the costumes, they just hold up so well. They're still beautiful, such lasting looks. Why do you think that is?
I get asked this question a lot with Clueless. And I think it's just the way I see things. I think that it's my point of view that's maybe more global. I was born in India. I grew up in Poland and Germany. I lived, in many different countries. I'm kind of like an old soul. I like things that are kind of timeless. And I also think that when I design really for not only the story and the character, but I try to make something that is beautiful, that is really, that does stand test of time. I think my sense of beauty, my sense of kind of my aesthetic, that's my aesthetic. It's really, I think it's hard to explain. But
I think it's just positive too. It's like your costumes have such joy to them.
Yes, I think that's a very good thing. And I also, there's certain kind of restraint, but then I give it all, so it's kind of like a balance of the two.
Right.
But I also think of the actor. I think of the body, in Clueless, everything had to be altered and fit perfectly. That also is important, and I think that's something that sometimes we forget in our own clothes or in, movies, that it's just, it's overdone, and I think that I always, to me, it's such a fine line. Comedy is, like, how do you make something funny without the costume wearing an actor? I mean, it's such a balance. It's such an interesting thing. I look at a lot of, there's so much talent out there, costume designer. The things that are, came out this year and last year. There's just so much beautiful stuff too, but I am unique in that way. I think that, and there's I think, like you said, through line of my Mona May look, Mona May kind of feel,
Right. The wonderful world of Mona May.
Yes. Maybe you just came up with the title for my book.
Yeah.
I'm going to write that down. Okay. This is good.
Write it down right now.
The wonderful world of Mona May Designs or something like that.
We want to mention somewhere in the book.
Yeah.
Of course, you guys, of course. But I don't know. Thank you, guys. I love talking about my work. I'm so passionate about it too. And I think that's part of it too. I'm so passionate. I love it. Every details is important to me. The communication is important to me. How I approach the work, I fight for things that I think are important, with the producers, for the money, with the directors. Sometimes, you have to talk actors into it. I'm really champion for kind of, maybe that's too, like, for kind of the femininity, that I think is really important, that it gets forgotten, for beauty. And, I sometimes have sleepless nights when I think about it. It's like, okay, how do I solve this? What do I do? How do I make that work? And sometimes you don't have the time, and you have to really come up with a very quick, easy solutions. But I think for anyone going into this, I think the passion is what's going to drive you, that's going to drive me to the end, that's going to make me wake up at 5 a.m. and go to Berlin and go to Canada and bring my dog and my bags, come home and have to unpack and start my life again. But,
doing it for the passion.
Doing it for the passion, and I think what else is there? Really, it's like you can look outside and kind of go, oh shit, what's happening out there? It's crazy. It's COVID, is this, but then if you go into like your world of podcasts or, any kind of artistic world or, even mathematics or anything, I think that you really can get lost in it and brings you joy. I think that's what life is about, I think, in the end, really taking the little things, and I get inspired by flowers and, I meditate. I kind of stay close to myself to find more of the answers in there, than from the outside world. And that's what I want to leave maybe your listeners with, like just each one of us is so unique. I think that's what's the beauty, that really if we can kind of accept ourselves as who we are and believe that our point of view is so unique that maybe it is interesting to others.
Don't make me cry, Mona. You're going to make me cry. Don't make me cry.
It's like it all starts with us in a sense, if we really can believe in ourselves, then we can kind of conquer the world in a way, that's when it's all about, because we're all humans. And that's what I think we started talking about this movie, how human it is, how kind of enchanting it is and sweet. And that's what it's about in the end, bringing that to ourselves, to feeling good. What did you say? Fairy tale romance month. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Feel good, and I appreciate you guys having me on, and always lovely to chat with you. And I'm sure we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much.
We have a quick game to play with you.
Okay. Let's do it.
The one costume to rule them all. So we have the one costume to rule them all, where each of us picks out our favorite costume for the movie, and we talk about why we think it is the one costume in this film that best represents it, kind of rules the screen. Do you have an idea of what you might think that is for you?
Yes.
Oh, let's hear it.
Evil Queen Narissa.
Yeah, that's my choice too. It has to be Narissa.
It has to be Narissa. The wedding dress is incredible. The curtain dress is incredible, but the Queen Narissa, it's a tour de force. It's art, pure art to me. It doesn't get any better than that. It's just so unique, I think, and different.
Right. When I think of like costume design staples, I think of like Aiko Ishioka's Dracula. I think of Clueless, and I think of Queen Narissa. Like those, it's like the holy trinity. Plus some others, but
I love you. Plus some others,
but I don't have enough time.
Exactly.
I know. I originally was going to go for her teal curtain dress, but I think you both changed my mind. I think it's Queen Narissa.
Thank you.
Oh man, we changed her mind. Yes,
I love that. Well, I think rightfully so. I think it really deserves it. I think that costume really deserves it. It's just, I think that again, when you see something that's different, it's not easy to make something different. And I think that's what it's all about, when you can come up. And I love the opportunity to kind of do these jobs where you have a little bit of carte blanche, that you get to play. So, all right, we are the Trinity.
Yes.
Before we let you go, Mona, are there any projects we might see your work on in the future that you can maybe tease?
Well, definitely watch Mixtape, which is
okay
on Netflix. I think it just came out a month ago, and it's an adorable coming-of-age story of a 12-year-old girl in the 90s, 1999.
Hello. A Mona May classic.
Of course, they form a band, punk rock band. So it's a very, very fun. A lot of punk rock music and stuff. Super adorable.
Yes.
And just finished working on a movie it's like an action film with Liam Neeson, filmed in Berlin.
Ooh. Amazing.
Super fun for action film fans. Super fun. The costumes, I have to say, are normal. Many Armani suits on him, but
no wedding dresses and manholes.
No wedding dresses and manholes. But it was super fun to work with him. He's incredible. And also finished another film for the horror fans called Baghead.
Ooh,
so that's probably something later this year, early next year. But very interesting movie, and I had super fun working on it and creating this very weird, dark, scary character.
Oh my gosh. So, a Mona May horror film. This is something I want to see. And it's not Haunted Mansion scary. It's real scary.
It's real scary. It's dirty. It's very dirty, but it's fun. Ooh. So yeah. So lots of stuff coming up, and more to come.
That's so exciting.
Thank you so much for joining. We're going to have you on to talk about all these things again. Maybe a Haunted Mansion episode one day. That'd be fun.
Absolutely.
Sounds perfect. I love it. All right, you guys. Well, all the best. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We love you.
Right.
Thank you.
We love you back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Till next time. Ciao.
Bye.
Oh, Elizabeth, what an amazing interview. I'm still almost kind of starstruck, honestly. Mona May is just brilliant.
Same. It was so good. I feel like any question I ever had about the Enchanted costumes got answered right there.
Right. It was just amazing. I'm still kind of shocked that we got all that great information recorded. You know?
I know. It was incredible, and she loves it so much, and she's so passionate about it, and it makes me enjoy the movie so much more, knowing what they went through to get to there.
Right. Oh my gosh, the Central Park heat wave. I've been in Central Park during a heat wave, and I had to change my shirt 4 or 5 times that day, So I can't believe they did that scene like that.
I've just been there in the summer on a regular hot day, and it's almost not bearable. I can't imagine doing a choreographed dance sequence.
Hell no. Oh my gosh. That blew me away. You would have no idea watching the film.
No.
I even looked up if this was actually filmed in New York, just in case it was just some really elaborate park set or something. But
yeah. No, it just looks like a fresh spring afternoon.
Yeah, it's so cheerful. And she just gives me such joy, talking about costume design and why we do this. It just really puts on perspective, the beauty of costume design and storytelling through costume. It just put me in a really cheery, positive mood.
Same. I'm ready to go watch it again, honestly.
Yeah, let's go frolicking through a park right now and talk to chipmunks and cockroaches and rats and stuff.
You know what? I'm there. Fly over here. We can go do this in Central Park.
I thought you said you were snowed in.
Oh. Come here in 2 months.
Well, Elizabeth, I'm excited to know what we're watching in our next edition of Fairy Tale Romance Month.
Everybody, we are taking a little bit of a time travel for our next Fairy Tale Romance. We are watching the classic Ever After, A Cinderella Story with the incredible Drew Barrymore.
Ooh, our first Drew Barrymore film.
Beautiful, classic, one of my favorites.
I've still never seen it, so I'm really, really excited. I know, it's crazy.
This is a staple of my childhood. That's wild. Okay, I'm even more excited now.
Well, thank you all so much for listening. And like I said, please support Mona May. Follow her on Instagram. Pick up that book. We're going to put the link in the show notes.
Yes.
Also head to that museum, the Mopop in Seattle. You can see Queen Narissa's costume, Giselle's wedding dress, and I believe the prince's costume too. It's worth the price of admission. I mean, seeing those costumes in person, woof.
I can only imagine. Thank you all for listening. If you could give us a little and a follow, we would really appreciate that. Also, if you really loved us, a 5-star text review would be wonderful. Thank you all so much. Have a great week.
The Art of Costume Blogcast is hosted and produced by Elizabeth Joy Glass and Spencer Williams. Our audio engineering and editing is done by Dan White. Follow us on Instagram at The Art of Costume Pod or visit theartofcostumeblogcast.com for all blogcast updates. If you want to support the show, go to theartofcostume.com/podstore, or you can head over to patreon.com/theartofcostume for some bonus content. For more costume reviews, deep dives, and interviews, head over to theartofcostume.com, a blog dedicated to highlighting the best in costume design.
Okay, I'll bring us in, Elizabeth. Mona's like, what is this? It's so all over. We promise it'll sound good in the end.
I know it. I know it will.